morning, everybody. Welcome to class today. Today we are going to be learning about the three branches of government, right? So in the three branches of government, which make up the White House, these three branches of government are going to serve three particular purposes. And today we're going to be able to identify that, right? So here we have three different poster boards, right? Of different colors. Color, no relevance, it doesn't matter. Right? So can somebody name at least one branch of government that they just know?
Executive.
Executive. Correct. So I'm going to write executive branch. All right. Great job, Mr. Hughes. All right. Can somebody name another branch of government?
Legislative.
Legislative. Great. Legislative branch, right? Legislative branch. All right, can everybody see?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, legislative, executive, and now we just have one more branch of government. Can somebody guess what that is?
Is it judicial?
Yes, it is the judicial branch. All right, so the judiciary branch of government, right? Judiciary branch, right? Excuse my handwriting. All right, so now that we have identified the three branches of government, let's now get into who are they made up of? Well, who and what do they consist of, right? Because each of them are serving an important role, right? So, legislative, executive, and judiciary in that order, right? So, the legislative branch, right? The legislative branch is compiled of two things, right? So first, the Senate, right? And then the other is the U.S. House of Representatives, right? These two entities make up the legislative branch. Also, one thing to note is in the Constitution, it is listed in this order. So the importance of me putting legislative versus executive versus judiciary is all listed here in the Constitution. All right, so I'm going to break down the U.S. Senate even further, right? So in the House of Senate, you might know one popular person who's a part of the Senate. Like a lot of you kids are on Instagram and the social media accounts. And so Maxine Waters, she is what? Nobody knows? She is in the legislative branch, right?
Oh, right.
So she is here in the Congress, right? So that is one person, because a lot of people don't know. So Maxine Waters, they call her, what do you kids call her? Auntie Maxine, right?
Auntie.
So, and then breaking down further who and what they do, right? So we're going to start with the Senate here. The Senate is compiled of what? 2 representatives from each state. So whether you're from California or you're from North Carolina here, no matter what, you're always going to have 2 representations from each state that serve in the House, right? So 2 representatives. That all up, right? So there's 2 representatives from each state, right? So who presides over the Senate? The Vice President. And we'll get to his role later. So the Vice President presides over the House of Senate, right? Notate that even though the Vice President presides over the Senate, he is not a part of the Senate. So he is not responsible for passing laws, and he has no ability to have any say-so. He only presides over the Senate, right?
Right.
So the Senate is also, they serve serving amount of time, right? So the Senate serves a 6-year term, right? So the Senate, 2 representatives from each state, regardless of what state. Whether your state is large, whether it's small, such as North Carolina versus California, no matter what, you're still going to have those two representatives, right? Mm-hmm. So next is the vice president resides over the Senate. And so he's not part of the Senate, but he resides over the Senate. Each Senate serves a 6-year term. As you know, our president serves what? A 4-year term. They serve a 6-year term. Next, their counterparts is the U.S. House of Representatives, right? Mm-hmm. The House of Representatives is compiled of 435 representatives. 435 representatives. Right? So, what is unique about the House of Representatives is they do not necessarily represent a state, but they represent individuals. So for each individual, they're representing almost 700,000 people. So we reflect on them as the voice of the people, right? So they represent the people. Represent people. Good. Unlike the Senate, who serves a 6-year term, the U.S. House of Representatives serves a 2-year term. 2-year term. Right. So here we have the legislative branch compiled of the Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, as you can see, there's facts about both. And as we get further, we'll get back into the two, right? So let's move on to the next branch. Next, we have the executive branch. As mentioned earlier, name somebody who would be a part of the executive branch, right?
The president.
President. Perfect. The president. So that means if the president is part of the executive branch, then the vice president is also a part of the executive branch. President. Well, the vice president and president are the executive branch. They have to have those who also support the office, right? So it's just not a 2-man crew. What is also compiled is the White House staff. The staff, right? So we've got the White House staff that is also part of the executive branch. That can include media staff, secretary, so forth, right? So in this, there's also the cabinets. So one popular one that you all probably know of is the Department of Defense.
Of Defense.
Right? Of Defense. The Department of Defense, DOD. Also, I am an Aggie, North Carolina Agricultural Technical State University. The Department of Agriculture is also under here, right? Mm-hmm. Department of Agriculture. So forth. I'm pretty sure I think there's maybe around 70 departments that make up the cabinet who are all part of this executive branch. All right. Lastly, we're going to focus on the judiciary branch, right? So a lot of people tend to overlook the judiciary branch, right? Because they're part of the Supreme Court system, and there is oftentimes, they hold their seats for so long just because the only way that they can be removed from office is based off of retirement, impeachment, or death. This is the only way you can get out of here. So the judiciary branch is made up of the Supreme Court. This is the Supreme Court. And then in the Supreme Court is made up of 9 Supreme Court justices. 9 Supreme Court justices. Is everybody following? Am I going a little too fast?
No, you perfect.
Okay. So it's made up of 9 Supreme Court justices. And unlike its counterparts, there is no term that they serve. Once again, they are only excavated from the office by impeachment, retirement, or death. So there is no amount of terms that are a category of the judiciary branch, right? So who selects the judiciary branch? Like, who's responsible, right? So in that case is the president. The president nominates the Supreme Court justices, right? Justices, same thing as a judge. So the president. And even though the president nominates the Supreme Court justices, aka the judges, it is the Senate who actually votes on the nominee. So even though the president may appoint the Supreme Court justices, it's not final until the Senate has voted them in. So the Senate, which is another important role that they dictate, the Senate votes the nominee. Right? So what is the responsibility? Like, what is the difference between a Supreme Court justice and your local kind of traffic court judge, right? What is the difference? So as stated earlier, that all of this, the reason why this is in order is due to the constitutional articles. And so each one is listed that way. So the role of the Supreme Court justices is to preside over things that are unconstitutional. So we'll put that as a fun fact. So they are only, I believe that each year only about 150 cases actually make it to the Supreme Court out of almost 700,000 cases that are available across the U.S.
Oh, wow.
So, and this one, this is, I'm sorry guys, I kind of got a brain freeze. So they preside over unconstitutional acts, unconstitutional law. So another thing about the judiciary is, unlike our court you are just here under traffic court and all the other courts that are local, is they preside by state, but if it makes it to the Supreme Court, they do not go state by state. It is law. If it violates the Constitution, it can be seen by the Supreme Court regardless of the state that you currently or did reside in. So they are not state appointed. Excuse my handwriting, right? So here we have the three branches of government. Right? So does anybody have, two things to notate as well. So with the legislative branch, the Senate and the House of Representatives, if you all watch CNN, which I know you probably don't, it's probably not the cool thing to do. If you do watch, oftentimes you would hear, this bill got passed, but they didn't vote on this and they don't vote on this. This because the legislative branch of Senate and Representatives are partisan. So we'll maybe have of the seats here, or majority, let's say majority of the seats. So let's say 70% is Democratic. And then and over here we got 80% who is Republican. These are parties, right? So if you are in the Senate and there are 70% majority of those seats are Democratic, and then 80% over here is Republican, they often clash because their views are different, right? So Democratic, Republican, and the Independent Party typically have very different views. And so when it comes to voting on those orders put down by the president, they often are in conflict, which causes a lot of things not to get passed, and it necessarily prolongs a lot of things as well. Another thing to notate with the House of Representatives that I didn't mention earlier is that the whole legislative branch, things that are taxable or things that are taxed by state does not appeal or go by without the legislative branch. So anything to do with taxes, when we think about taxes being raised or taxes and bills for each state, it cannot get passed unless the legislative branch has passed it. So, and naming all three of these branches, legislative branch, executive branch, and judiciary branch, we see that they both serve a very, very, very important role here in the White House, and they each serve an additional purpose, right? So, is there any questions that anybody has in regards to the executive, judiciary, or legislative branch, or is there something maybe that you all didn't understand? No? Okay. So we're going to move on. So here we are with the fun activity, right? So this is going to be today's activity that I all want us to kind of participate in. So in each corner of the room here, you will have something that says legislative branch, executive branch, and judiciary branch. Each one of you have a card on your desk that is representative of a role, right? So say if your card says President Obama, you choose which category depending off the lesson that you should go in. If I have you as Representative Maxine Waters on your card, then pick which corner that you would go in. If I have Chief Justice Mr. Hughes, then you know which corner to go into, right? So look at your card and divide yourselves up into 3 teams, right? So once you get in your 3 teams, these 3 teams will be your group. So each person in each group is going to serve a purpose, right? And so as a group, you are going to decide on how you will teach the lesson here to your fellow classmates, right? So in saying that, say for example, Mr. Hughes, you're going to be Chief Justice Hughes, for example, right? So when you get in your class, so what we're going to do is create a blog, a personal blog. And so in this blog, what you're doing is typically telling us what is it like in the day in the life of a Chief Justice? What is it like in the day of a president? What is it like in the House of Representatives? But in doing this and talking in, you can talk in first person, that is okay. And doing this and representing who and what you are, think about how does that tell us exactly the importance of your role and what you do. All right, so if there is maybe 4 people to each group under this legislative branch, pick your R role and each contribute something to the blog, right? So each of you will have 10 to 15 minutes to write about your blog. After you've finished with your blog, your responsibility will be to come up here, and this is just briefly what I described on each and what each does. I want you to go further in deep and talk to us about what you actually do. You all are going to become the experts about each branch of government. So like I said, take 10 to 15 minutes. Each of you contribute something to the blog, tell us what you do, tell us your responsibilities. Create a name for yourself, create a cool name for yourself, but be able to come up here and give us an expert overview of your branch. Before I do let you all split off and go to your designated corners and form your groups, is there any questions, concerns, or anything that I could do beforehand? No? All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and split up into groups, and then we'll meet back in about 15 minutes, and I'll walk around and kind of converse with you all so that you all kind of understand and just have some kind of leadway, right? All right, well, thank you, and I'll just go ahead and walk around.